PowerPoint, so I like to have my slides, my slide notes on the slide. I'd like to start this session today by, with two comments. The first one is I'm accepting Albert's challenge for a face-off between too much transparency and not enough transparency. So next time we're going to meet in Bangor, it's going to be gloves off, complete boxing affair regarding if you should have more or less transparency in public procurement. Because I know where I sit in that debate. That's the first comment. The second comment is this session is called Unprotected Procurement due to the responsibility of someone sitting in this room. Alan Aitken, the head of procurement back down from Carmarthen, I put on Facebook when I was planning the session that I wanted a crazy name for it, and he suggested unprotected procurement. That's what you should use. Okay, I'll do that, Alan. And so I'm giving you the right attribution for this responsibility of this session. Having said that, I think perhaps the better name would have been protected procurement, because I know that I'm going to be a little bit polemic, so perhaps I should have planned ahead and got a few of the props from Doctor Who that were outside to protect myself from the fallout of the session. My session is very simple. It's a very simple premise. We've had a lot of information, a lot of news over the last weeks, months, and years that social policies in public procurement are good, and they're being well used in certain areas, such as Wales. I don't believe that anything can be gotten for free. And I think it's time now that we start looking as well at the consequences or the downsides of the use of such social policies in public procurement. So I found out 5 reasons why this may be in fact a bad idea, or 5 downsides that should be taken into consideration when we look at upsides as well that social policies have in public procurement. I would say as well that these reasons are not entirely legal. I'm not discussing if what is legal or not legal that can be done. I'm discussing the consequences and what may happen after they're taken into consideration. The first distinction I'd like to make is between core and non-core social policies. There's been a discussion over the years that social policies and also environmental policies, if they're core, if they're part of the contract spec, if they're part of the actual contract and award criteria, they're absolutely fine, and they're just part of what the contracting authority really wants to buy. And I agree. I don't have any problem with them. I think on the long run, we're going to be able to use them well within that setting. My question and my problem and my concern is with the non-core social policies. That's where I think the problem may lie in the near future. The first reason I would like to present today is bad economics. There's no such thing as a free lunch. So when a contracting authority, for example, introduces community benefits clauses or social policies clauses, they think honestly that they're getting something for free. And for the first few times, they may be getting that extra bit that was not in the contract originally. They may be getting that for free. But believe me, sooner or later, and I bet my money on sooner, the market will understand what are the incentives at play, and will adapt and will start factoring the cost of producing that extra social benefit that is being required. It's going to be sooner or later factored into the actual cost of the contract. So effectively, you're not getting it for free. You're getting it for a price that you don't know what is the price that you're paying. You don't know if that bit of the contract which is being performed, let's say the apprenticeships, the traineeships, whatever it is that you're requesting, you don't know exactly all that is going to cost you, because that extra requirement that the contractor will have to provide you will have an impact on their bottom line. So with bad economics, you had a lack of transparency and a lack of the contracting authority knowing where their money is going. So I think that's the first problem. In addition, as I said, I believe that sooner or later, these costs will be incorporated into the contract. So sooner or later, prices will go up. And they may go up and you think it's inflation. They may go up and you don't even notice. But I believe they will go up sooner or later. The second is, in my view, by adding extra stuff into a contract, you're making it SME unfriendly. Over the last few years, what is the key criticism that SMEs have made to procurement? That's my question to the audience. What is the biggest bugbear they have regarding procurement?
They don't like the process.
Why? It's complicated. It's complex. And you have to understand that SMEs, when they allocate resources to procurement, they're making a very big bet, a much bigger bet in comparison what a bigger company can do. So a bigger company can allocate more resources, they can develop more competencies in these auxiliary functions and auxiliary objectives that are being requested from the SME. So in my view, in effect, when we start adding these new clauses to the contracts, we'll be helping larger companies become more and more competitive, because they're going to be able to create that specialism in-house much faster than an SME is going to be able to. And worse, an SME, it's probably not going to be able to do it in-house, so they'll have to subcontract and go outside, and again, increase their costs to try and be competitive in the procurement market. So I wouldn't be surprised if in the next couple of years, you'd see a lot of entrepreneurial types promoting themselves as social policies experts and touting their wares into the market, not only to the contracting authorities, but also to the suppliers, creating value-added services, I would say, between commas, that, in my view, do not add any value to the procurement process. It's just a normal reaction from the market to a need that is going to be created. And I'd like to tell a story about SME friendliness and social policies. A few months ago, I don't know if it was early this year or late last year, we did a workshop in Swansea for our previous project, Winning and Tendering. And we did a nice workshop with SMEs. And one of the guys that was there, it was literally a one-man band, he had an electrical company. And he wasn't very happy. He wasn't very happy because a contracting authority, which I don't remember what it was, wanted him to perform a contract for a year. So they wanted him for a year, but they wanted him to take 1 or 2 apprenticeships. And the guy said, well, it doesn't make sense because I'm going to be running the contract for a year, but the apprenticeship needs to run for 4. So what I'm going to do with this guy or that guy during the next 3 years? And if I want to win a contract somewhere else, do I need to get extra apprenticeships coming from that side of the border as well, and not only the one that I have now? Now, a bigger company can absorb this cost, can absorb this problem much more easily than a smaller one is. So in my view, the second reason why social policies on the long run, they can actually be bad, is because they are inherently SME and friendly. The third reason is a slightly more legal issue. Most of the time that I've seen them, and I'm not going to consider myself a thorough expert in the field, but most of the time that I've seen them mentioned in one way or another in contract terms, or one way or another in the contract notice. They're mentioned there. And you may well know that we have had a decision from the Court of Justice called the Anakis a few years ago. Was it, 2010, Albert? 2009, something like that? Whereby the Court of Justice said in no uncertain terms that each and every and single award criterion needs to be disclosed fully, including the weightings and subcriteria in advance. Now, if you put that information in the contract notice, but you don't attribute a contract weighting to it, an award criteria weighting to it, in effect you're saying, I want to be influenced by whatever you put in your response regarding this area, but I'm not telling the market what is the weighting of that criterion. I'm basically going to be influenced across all criterion, and I'm going to be swayed or not from what you put there in that part of the bid, in any criterion that I want to put that information in. So in my view, there's 2 consequences here. If I was advising a supplier, I would say, put everything in the kitchen sink in your response, because that is going to increase the possibilities that you're going to win. Well, that's not probably what you'd like to hear, especially from the public sector, but that will be my advice for a private company, especially a larger company. But for the public contractor, there's a bigger risk, which is if you're actually being influenced by whatever is putting in the bid that is not subject to an award criteria, what is the consequence that we have? We have an illegal award. a contract that has been illegally awarded because you have not put in all the award criteria that in effect you've used to award that contract. Again, if you're talking about core issues, if you're talking about core social policies, they're already part of the contract. They have to be included in the award criteria. So I don't see there a problem. My problem is, as I've said, with the non-core social policies. The fourth one is again a reason connected with law. It's that in my view, by definition, and especially by the way that they spun in the media, they foster discrimination and protectionism. When people talk about social policies, they talk about community benefits and local benefits. And when I start hearing that in the context of procurement, I'm having a throwback to the days where contracting authorities used any and every means to ensure that the contracts were awarded to a certain selection of contractors. For me, the emphasis on localism is a warning sign. And in fact, a few weeks ago, I ran a module on procurement and innovation for our LLM students at Bangor. And some of them are here today, and they didn't notice, but I put a trick on a scenario that we used in that day. I put a trick because one of the bids that they were analyzing was a foreign company, which was saying, yes, I very much like social policies, so I'm employing long-term unemployed in Romania or Bulgaria. And one of the students replied immediately, this is not community benefits, this is not local benefits, this is benefits on the other country. And that's exactly the answer that I was looking for. Okay, this is just one data point. This was just one answer. So I'm not saying that this is a general provision, but it indicates immediately what is the actual driver that people have behind social policies when they talk them connected with public procurement. Now, call me old-fashioned, but I really like the principle of non-discrimination. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here talking with you, and otherwise we wouldn't have this conference here because Dermot as well is Irish, so he wouldn't be here doing the conference with you guys. So I pretty much like the principle of non-discrimination. But for me, the bigger killer is the same amount of money or a bigger amount of money than actually is being spent in that contract. And for the last 20 or 30 years, we've been trying to fight in procurement, and some of our colleagues that I know personally are very engaged in this fight, in trying to get rid of offsets in the defense procurement because they make the market less transparent, more difficult to operate, and more prone to foul play. My risk, or my view, is that we're basically allowing, in a sense, the same mechanism, the same logic to be applied not only to the defense contracts, where they already have seen the problems, but to every single public procurement procedure there can be. And that, for me, I think it's a bigger risk. It's a very big risk. And for me, it's the killer on this situation. Because when you start adding stuff that is not connected with the contract, you start adding the complexity, you start making life difficult for suppliers, you start to incentivize a closer relationship between certain types of suppliers and contracting authorities. And the bigger the contract, the more likely it is for this to happen. You're going to lead to something that is very damning and very dangerous in public procurement, which is fostering corruption. And one of the key findings and one of the key issues that has been identified and pinpointed time and time again with offsets in the defense sector is that they indeed foster corruption. There's no transparency in the market. The contracts are complex. They're difficult. You create a new industry, which are the experts in offsets, which basically make their life finding new crazy ways to justify. The contract is for $1 billion. Yeah, but you're going to give to that country another $1 billion or $2 billion in contracts that are going to come from here, from there, in areas that are nothing to do with the main contract. Because on the long run, that's what's going to happen. You're going to have social policies or community benefits, whatever the name has, that they're going to be farther and farther and farther away from the main contract. And that is just mind-boggling complex and difficult to manage. That's my view and that's my take. So that's pretty much what I wanted to say to you today. So I'm gonna don my armored suit and my Kevlar for the Q&A. So give me a couple of minutes, and I'll be joining Albert in the panel. Thank you.